Welcome everyone. I'm Ammar Ahmad, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Wesley Huang, founder of SciMate, North America's leading cold outreach agency for B2B software companies and tech startups. Wesley and his team have helped B2B founders go from zero pipeline to booking demos within 21 days using cold outreach that actually converts. Today we're getting into the engine room, the copy. What makes a cold email get replied to and what makes send it straight to the fresh. This is a 50-minute of pure insight, no fluff, no filler. Wesley, great to have you. Let's get into it.
Yeah, appreciate for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the introduction as well. It's a, a great introduction, make me blush a little bit, but I appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so the first question is that cold email is the most competitive channel in B2B right now. Every founder thinks they can write, most are wrong. What specifically does Simate Copy do differently that turns a deleted email into a booked meeting?
I think in general, copywriting is a very, I would say, like underappreciated pillar in cold outreach, right? So if you're on LinkedIn, you hear people talk about deliverability, you hear people talk about lead list building, data tools, all that kind of stuff, GTM, Clay workflow, but rarely you see anybody talk about copywriting, right? Because in my honest opinion, copywriting is a creative aspect of cold email. And I don't think like there's anything else creative when it comes to cold outreach or like GTM in general, right? Or like sorry, GTM workflow building is also creative, but most of that is basically technical, right? We got, like infrastructures, we got data scraping, we got lead list building. Those are all technical, but copywriting is such a creative aspect, right?
Yeah.
And in order for you to really write good copy, you really have to understand like the psychology, right? The sales principle behind the scene. Like you can't just write a copy and expect it to work. If that
For
makes
sure.
sense. I think that's the misconception that most people have like, hey, I have everything set up correctly. I'm just gonna go out there, I'm gonna keep pitching my product and then
Uh,
it's gonna magically work. And that's just not the case that we've been seeing.
exactly. That's a perfect answer for that. And you were absolutely right here. So my second question is that you have positioned copy as a deliverability tool, not just a persuasion tool, right? So walk us
Yeah.
through the mechanics, like how does the structure and language of an email directly affect whether it reaches the inbox at all or not?
There's no really one or two particular framework that I like to use, right? Because some framework might work for certain products and some framework might work for another products, right? Some people prefer to read shorter emails, some people prefer to read longer email. So there's not really like a one size fit all copywriting that works for every single product or like industry. Now, there are a few certain rule of thumbs, like short emails typically perform better than like long email, right? But that's not the case for like all of them, of course. And we're talking about like any particular framework that I like. So I actually developed this framework at the agency like last year's, and I wanted to at least like have a way for my GTM engineer to like refer to when it comes to writing copy. And the framework is called
Uh,
Think, Feel, Know, Do, right? So
you know,
essentially, think we will basically separate the copy into like four different sections. You can like play around with like, like the way that you organize it, but think, feel, know, do is the framework. So having the first sentence talking about making the prospect think about the problem, right? That's the most important thing. When it comes to cold email, if you don't talk about, like the problem, what are you solving for the prospect, then most of the time it's not going to work, right? So the first sentence of every single cold email, it has to have the prospect think about the problem, right? Now, they might not even be aware that they have the problem, but that's the challenge when it comes to the first sentence, right? This is the part
yeah,
where you can maybe like personalize the message. Maybe if it's like an industry-wise problem, you can like focus more on that, right? So that's the first sentence to think. Second is feel. They have to feel the pain, right? So this could, like a lot of people in the space, they call it poke the bear, right? Asking questions that kind of
okay.
poke around the problem, right? So having the prospect feel about the pain, what is going to happen if they don't actively trying to solve that problem right now, right? Think, feel, know is a third sentence. Know is essentially letting the prospect know that there is a solution out there, and this is what most people call the offer line, right? Talk a bit about how can you help them achieve the outcome, right? Not who you are as a company. That's one of the most like misconception, right? Talk about how you can help them going from point A to point B.
Okay.
And then lastly, D is for do. Do is basically the CTA, right? Have soft CTA everybody love pushing for meetings. You can still push for a meeting, but don't avoid like a hot CTA, like, hey, you want to meet next Monday, right? That's most likely gonna work. But when I say soft CTA, something like, hey, I would love to get some of your thoughts on it, right? If you have some time, right? That's very soft. Or something like, hey, let me know if this is relevant, right? Quick, simple, straight to the point. It's kind of hinting at the meeting, but you're not directly pushing for a meeting, right? So that's the last part of the framework. That's the CTA.
Perfect, perfect. You have really explained it well. Like third question is that AI is flooded in boxes with hyper-personalized but hollow outreach. Decision
Mm,
makers are now more skeptical than ever. How does Samit write in a way that feels at a genuinely human and where's the line between relevance and intrusion?
mm.
That's the most important question, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is also the challenge part, right? And
Yeah,
as AI are constantly growing, hopefully at some point it will be able to write like a human, right?
yeah, it will.
I think that's spot on about AI, right? AI right now is in a way too perfect. If that makes
Yeah, it
sense.
is.
Um, it like you see all this even like for like photo generator, you see like a perfect, like edited photo, and you're like, ah, that's an AI generated photo, right? But if you see a
Yeah,
photo it's kind of a little bit blurry and it's not well edited, and you're like, all right, that's a human photo, all right?
exactly.
So when it comes to copywriting, it's basically the same thing, right? Um, a human copy usually makes some kind of like grammar error, right? So,
Okay.
for example, if you say something like, hey, I would love to get your thoughts on it. And let's say you end up with a question mark, right? What does it read like? It reads like, I'd love to get your thought on it, right? It's a question, right? But is it really a question if you just take the statement by itself? It's probably isn't, right? But as a human, right? When we say it out loud, when we make the conversation, right? Like, hey, John, I'd love to get your thoughts on it, right? It's more of like a statement, but in cold email, if you end it with a question mark, it sounds more like a question, right? And AI is not able to do that right now unless you prompt it specifically. If that makes
Exactly.
sense. Yeah.
So that's
So
good.
yeah, so those are like grammatically error in a way, but in cold email, if you apply those kind of like error basically on purpose, right, it's gonna sound a lot more human, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Spot on. I was second your statement. The fourth question for today's call is for a B2B founder currently writing their own outreach. What is the one
Hmm.
strategic shift in how they think about copy that would have the most immediate impact on the reply rates?
I briefly mentioned about the framework that I like to use at my agency, right? That's like my default
Yeah.
framework. Let's say if somebody were to not able to come up with like a new, like fancy copywriting, and we just default to that. Most of the time it does work. Um, think, feel, no, do. I would say that the third line, the offer, is one of the most important lines of every cold email, right? Kind of think think back on like if you're a founder, you're trying to write a cold email copy, and as a matter of fact, like I feel like this applies to like every single channel. Really take a step back and think about what offer can I, give to my target audience? What offer can I give to my potential clients, right? And most people don't even have like a good definition of what an offer is really, right? To me, an offer is an exchange, right? You exchange maybe your product, or like you exchange, your product in exchange for like, maybe the money or whatever it might be, right? Um, Now, when it comes to an exchange, I think you really have to think about the other person perspective as well, right? Like, how can I make it worth it for somebody to basically maybe like hop on a meeting with me and down the road even like give me their money, right? Like, it has to work in terms of like a two-way street. Like, it can't be just like, hey, I have this product, you want to hop to the car, see what it is, right? You're basically asking for their time, right? In return, what can you give them? If that makes sense.
Mm.
Now, for the most part, the answer could be just solving that pain point, solving the problem, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, if a product itself is solving a problem that everybody's facing, there isn't like a solution out there. Most of the time, like you don't have to worry so much about a copy. Like the product, the offer basically sell itself, right?
Well,
But if the prospect doesn't is not interested in the problem, if the prospect isn't even aware that they have the problem and you fail to basically communicate that to the prospect, then the offer is not going to work. Right. Like you're asking for their time, you're asking for the money, and if they don't even have the problem or if they don't even know the value, like of your product, then there's no point to like hop into the call with you. If that makes sense.
Yes, you have already explained it so well, the subject line, the opener, and the body, and the CTA. But
Yeah,
I've seen Simon has booked hundreds of demos across North America's most competitive SaaS markets.
yeah,
When you reverse engineer the sequences that drop the most pipeline, like I'm not asking about what does that copy looks like because you have already given
mm,
us so much about that.
yeah.
Like, is there a number, reply rate, open rate, demos booked, follow up? Can you give us the context on what does that mean in a practice?
Okay, sounds good. So I briefly talked about like the entire copywriting framework, like in the like a few minutes ago already. So what I want to talk about now is like how you should be thinking about when it comes to your roadmap, right? Like how should you test? When should you stop testing? When should you start scaling, right? So I would say that at the agency, we split that into three different stages. So we got stage one, testing, stage two, optimizing, and then stage three is scaling, right? Testing. What you want to do is you want to, like write maybe like a simple copy, don't try to overcomplicate it, like follow all the best practices, keep it short, keep it simple, short, CTA, soft CTA, now, what you want to test is really your value proposition, right? Maybe test, like different pain point to see like which one resonate more to the market, right? Test out the offer, test out the positioning, like all that kind of stuff, and just really test a bunch of them. There is a limited angle, right? So you can talk about this angle, right? You can talk about this angle with this, like role title, with this industry, and you can just go on and so forth, right? So there's like a limited angle that you can test with. The goal of the first stage is to test as many as you can, right? Different ICPs, different offers, different copy. Now, if you have, like maybe one or two campaigns, hopefully more than that, that is, like
Yeah.
generate like a few
Yes.
leads, a few meetings coming in. What you want to do is focus all of your effort into those campaigns, right? And that is when we go to the second stage, which is optimizing. For optimizing, this is when you maybe like want to tweak the language a little bit. You want to tweak small things, maybe like different CTA, different subject line, all that kind of stuff. The goal of the second stage is to really create consistency, right? Now, let's say weeks in and weeks out, and that one particular campaign targeting the same ICP with the same message, with the same pain point has been generating like a bunch of like meetings for you. You know for a fact that is the winning campaign, right? That is essentially
Yes.
how you're able to find product market fit, and that's when you can actually like put all of your money into scaling that one single particular campaign. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love the answer. And Wesley, this has been genuinely valuable. The kind of conversation most founders need to hear before they write a single word of outreach. To everyone watching, if you're a B2B founder and a cold lead outreach is something you're struggling with, Sarmat is the name to know. I will drop Wesley's and Sarmat links in the comments. Wesley, thank you. This was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Ammar. Pleasure to be here.